Before this story begins, make sure you watch until the end, because once you hear it, you will never look at a museum the same way again. Click like and subscribe, and let's open the door that was never meant to be opened. That night, the sky above Beijing was pitch black, lit only by the faint glow of streetlights that softly shimmered on the sidewalk. A cold wind blew from the east, carrying the damp scent of earth and street fumes mixed with the subtle fragrance of hibiscus flowers blooming in the city park. I glanced at the watch on my wrist. 10 o'clock at night. This wasn't the usual time for a journalist to be on assignment, especially at the 798 Art District, which was famously deserted after closing hours. But this time, curiosity, stronger than fear, pulled me into the massive building. The 798 Art District wasn't just an ordinary museum. Once an old factory complex, it had been transformed into a contemporary art center filled with galleries, installations, and bizarre sculptures. However, there was another side to this place that people rarely talked about, a dark side hidden behind stained glass and colorful wall paint. They said that the spirit of Yu Menglong, a young celebrity who died tragically a few years ago, often appeared here, especially in rooms rarely visited by the public. I didn't fully believe in horror stories, but there was something about the rumors that made my hair stand on end. I took a deep breath before pushing open the main entrance. The long creak of the hinges as I entered made me hold my breath. Yellow lights hanging from the ceiling reflected off the cold marble floor, creating shadows that danced slowly. The atmosphere was so silent. It was as if the outside world had vanished as soon as I stepped inside. Only the sound of my own footsteps echoed in the vast hallway. It felt like entering a living, empty space, watching my every move. Near the lobby, I saw several modern art installations, human statues with flat faces, abstract paintings with deep red colors, and a red thread installation hanging from the ceiling to the floor. People said the red thread was a symbol of humanity's connection to fate, but there was something darker hidden behind its meaning. I shivered. My hand automatically gripped the small flashlight I was carrying, turning on its light to illuminate the hallway. My steps led me to the museum's main hall, which was even larger. There, large statues stood in neat rows, staring at me with blank expressions, as if wanting to speak but unable to. I tried to calm myself, closing my eyes for a moment and taking a breath. But when I opened my eyes, something was different. A shadow in the corner of the room seemed to move. I swallowed hard. It's probably just a reflection of the lights, I thought, trying to convince myself, but instinct told me this was more than just an illusion. I walked deeper, towards one of the galleries that was rarely visited. The wooden floor creaked under my feet, each sound sounding too loud in the silence of the night. On the walls, photos of Yu Menglong were displayed. His face was smiling, but his eyes looked empty, as if hiding secrets that he didn't want anyone else to know. I stopped in front of one of the photos, touching the cold glass, and felt a chill penetrate my hand. My nose began to tingle from the faint scent of candles from where I didn't know. I didn't remember any candles being lit in this museum, especially at this late hour. As I stepped further, my gaze fell on a yellow note tucked between two statues. The handwriting, which was almost faded, made me hesitate for a moment. However, curiosity was stronger than fear. I bent down and picked it up, written in black ink. The words made my heart stop for a moment. Don't believe everything you see. They will use my sacrifice to stay young. I refuse to be silent. I was silent. This writing clearly belonged to Yu Menglong, or at least someone who wanted people to believe it was his. My body trembled. A cold voice sounded from the corner of the room, soft but piercing to the bone. I turned quickly, but no one was there. Only a black shadow moved quickly between the statues. It felt like someone was watching, judging my every move. I tried to divert my thoughts, convincing myself that this was just a psychological effect, an empty museum at night, dim lights, and a wild imagination. But my steps were getting heavier. It was as if the floor was sticking to my feet, making each step feel like pulling myself out of thick mud. I turned on the flashlight brighter, shining it into every corner. The shadows seemed to dance on the walls, their shapes changing, but always feeling like they were directed at me.
I continued walking until I found a quieter installation room. There, some strange objects were arranged on the floor, dolls with empty eyes, tattered cloths, and many statues whose faces resembled famous people. I realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just an art exhibition. This was a place of ritual. I felt an aura of deep darkness, as if the walls and statues around me were absorbing all the light.
Suddenly, my flashlight flickered, and the room seemed to change. The shadow of Yu Menglong appeared at the edge of my eye. Only for a moment, but enough to make me gasp. His face was pale, his eyes red as if burnt, staring at me with a look of sadness and anger. A whispering voice sounded, soft but cold. "Why did you come to my place?" I refused to be silent. I almost dropped the flashlight. My hands and feet felt weak. Panic began to take over. I wanted to run, but it was as if something was holding my body back. My steps faltered, and the shadow grew closer, covering the light of the flashlight. It felt chilling to the bone, spreading throughout my body. I closed my eyes for a moment, hoping that when I opened them, it would all be just a dream. But when I opened my eyes, the yellow note was still in my hand, and the shadow had vanished. I looked around. The room was silent again, only the sound of my heartbeat was loud. I knew something had changed in this museum that night. There was no going back to the normal world before I knew what really happened to Yu Menglong. Is your heart strong enough? If it is, click like and subscribe, so I'll know you're ready to continue, because after this, there is no turning back. I sat on the floor for a moment, calming myself. My thoughts were chaotic. The rumors I had heard all this time, stories about spirits who refused to be silent, about sacrifices for wealth and the secret of eternal youth of the rulers, all of that now felt real, no longer just mystical stories. I realized that tonight wasn't just an ordinary assignment. I was in the midst of a living mystery, one that could swallow anyone who got too close. I gathered my courage, stood up, and continued my steps into the deeper gallery. Each statue seemed to stare at me, as if judging whether I deserved to know the truth. The flashlight shone on the red thread installation that danced softly in the air. I felt like I was in the middle of a labyrinth, where every corner held secrets and threats. My footsteps led me to a small door at the end of the hallway. The door was half open, and the scent of candles was getting stronger. I bent down and saw the floor inside filled with strange objects, celebrity photos, tattered cloths, and objects I couldn't explain. My heart screamed for me to leave, but curiosity held me back. I entered slowly, each step making the wooden floor creak, a sound that seemed too loud for such a silent space. In the middle of the room, there was a small altar. Half-melted candles cast a dim light. A small doll with empty eyes stared at me, as if wanting to speak. I realized that all these objects were part of an inhumane ritual. My body trembled as I realized that this wasn't just a legend. There was real darkness here. Something that exploited sacrifices for terrible purposes, eternal youth for those in power. I stood frozen, feeling the cold air enveloping my entire body. The whispering voice sounded again, this time closer, as if coming from inside my own head. I refuse to be silent. Don't let them use you too. I looked down, reading the note once more. The handwriting had never looked so alive before. It felt like Yu Menglong himself was talking to me, begging that this truth not be lost, that the world know what really happened. And that night, at the 798 Art District, I realized one thing. I was not just a visitor or a journalist. I was a witness to something much bigger, something dark, real, and terrible. The spirit of Yu Menglong refused to be silent. And I knew this was just the beginning of a long night. a night that would change my life forever. One click from you can keep this story alive. Support this channel with a like, comment, and subscribe, because we will continue to uncover mysteries no one else dares to talk about. Stay tuned for part 2.